for me, I'm genuinely curious as to what the situation is going to be like for Tubarão at the tournament. Maybe he doesn't even end up getting banned or picked or whatever. Maybe it's completely overblown. That wouldn't be the first time. Clap and we go. It's episode 17 of the Siege Show presented by Jake and Guzz, and we've got a little bit more of a quick one for this particular week. We've been quite hard at work over the last couple of weeks with our Jake and Guzz show and getting those filmed out before the Christmas break. Coupled with the fact, Guzz, that there's probably not too much going on with Siege at the moment, so it's not going to be probably one of the more jam-packed episodes, but still, nevertheless, we've got some stuff to talk about. I guess one of the more bigger things was the very recent 1v1 that broke the Siege internet, Jynxzi and Shaiiko. Did you end up watching that one live?
No, I don't think it was at a very good time zone, but I caught some highlights from it. It was all over my fucking TikTok feed, of course. But yeah, Jynxzi, Shaiiko, they collaborated. They did a 1 versus 1. Obviously, Jynxzi, very renowned content creator in Siege at the moment, and Shaiiko goes without saying one of the best to ever touch the game. So two big names, they collabed. Jynxzi managed to hit over 100k viewers in that particular stream, which I think really goes to show the power of, you know, collaboration and content that we've seen in other games and other, you know, spheres of the space, and one that I've always advocated for more people in Siege to do. And I hope, if anything, it encourages other creators to do similar things, whether it be with pros or whoever else.
They have, though. We've done a 1v1.
Well, we did a 1v1. I don't think it probably got quite as many hits.
Didn't get 100k views.
No.
I watched the YouTube version. So Jynxzi did it live, and then it was put together as a YouTube thing as well. Because I would imagine this would have been at a pretty poor time zone for us in terms of the live portion of it. But even the YouTube video is actually popping off quite a lot, and it's basically just almost like a raw cut of the live stream anyway. It's not as if it's been overly edited. It hasn't been cut down. And the other thing that's interesting about it is the fact that it's basically console versus mouse and keyboard as well. And from my knowledge, apparently Jynxzi did okay, like all things considered. Well, one, he's on console, and 2, he's going up against Shaiiko.
Yeah. So he actually choked the first map. He was up like a decent amount of rounds on Oregon on the first map, and then I think he lost to like 7-5 or something in the end. So he was doing a pretty good job. And it probably opens a discussion more broadly about console PC crossplay, whether that should be a thing. I think we'll touch on that in the exclusive content for this particular episode.
No, it's in this episode. It's in this main.
Oh, not for the exclusive. I flagged it for the exclusive part. We can talk about it now, though.
No, we'll be talking. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, let's just bring it up now because it was in my debate hot takes segment, but we can probably just talk about it as a thing anyway. But in terms of console versus PC, firstly, it's becoming a lot more common throughout, I think, gaming titles in general. You've seen kind of what it's been able to do for like Apex Legends, where actually console or controller is now the predominant factor. For Siege, it's interesting because I don't know if there's as many advantages to being on a controller on a console.
So the biggest problem you encounter with crossplay for Siege is, first off, there's no aim assist. So it's not like an Apex where there's aim assist, which I think is obviously, you know, going to be an issue if you introduce aim assist. Not only does it change how the game's been for 8+ years, but it also induces frustration in PC players. I know, for instance, like when Halo Infinite came out, I think it's been adjusted since, but like the aim assist was just insane. You could never win a straight 1v1 if you're on PC. It was just a terrible experience. So there's that, and then there's, you know, add in one-shot headshots as well. So I think it's going to be difficult to implement it, but I think we're at a stage now where if you have an opt-in system where if console players, whether it be on controller or maybe also now allow for keyboard to cross-play as well if you wanted, if they have an opt-in system to do that, I think it comes with benefits. And especially coming from like a smaller region in OS, where if you queue past 1 a.m, it takes forever to find a game, whereas, you know, EU, NA probably takes a couple minutes to pop a game at any given time. That would be a huge benefit. And also the fact that, from our understanding, the console portion of the player base is the biggest. Yeah. By quite a large metrics as well. So as you said, in terms of what it would do for PC, is it would very much mean that you're not really sitting around in terms of queues. Not that you really do in general. Like I think you can typically jump into a quick match or whatever. Maybe ranked I think for us, normally the golden rule is like once it hits about 1 a.m, if you're not 5 stacking, it can take like 10, 15, 20 minutes to find a game. So, but that is a small region issue. But the issue, I think, stems that if there's no help for console, no help for controller, mouse and keyboard's just always going to be better. By far, yeah. But then at the same time, if you add an aim assist to the level of like Apex Legends,
does it then overtake mouse and keyboard?
Yeah, I don't think... The only way I see this system working is you have... if you're trying to spoof the system, Mousetrap catches you and you can't keyboard against other controller players, but you could, in theory, use keyboard on console and then cross-play against keyboard on PC. I think that would probably be a fair system if you could make it work.
I think also typically what ends up being the case is those that are on console actually have the option of turning off the crossplay.
Yeah,
so they get the option.
It should be 100% opt-in. It should not be on by default. It should be, if you want to crossplay and you can select your input method.
Do you think, if there's no advantages for controller or console, should it even be opt-in then for PC?
Well, I think PC would just be on default, right?
Yeah, it should be just on default.
Advantage, I would think.
Yeah, whereas console, they get to choose whether or not they actually want to.
And you could maybe introduce some way to benefit console players that opt in, because theoretically it would be a disadvantage, maybe. I don't know. Extra
renown or more, maybe a high percentage chance at your packs or something like that. That could be interesting. Yeah, I'd love to see it. I mean, and I think obviously what we saw in terms of the Jynxzi and Shaiiko 1v1 is maybe the gap is not as big as we thought. Like, maybe it's not like as if... I feel like a really good player on console that has been playing Siege on console for a very long time on controller, that obviously knows the game. And the beauty of Siege is it's not all about the aim. Map knowledge and gadget knowledge and positioning and all of these things matter quite a lot. And to be completely honest, it's probably not that hard on a console controller to hold an angle of a shotgun versus someone that's on mouse and keyboard. If I'm an idiot, come swinging around a corner, the guy on console is still going to kill me. So I don't think it would be completely impossible for them to be able to compete against mouse and keyboard. But I think maybe if you were to take like a champion player on console, maybe they won't be able to reach that through crossplay. So
I mean, the only other thing to keep in mind as well that I haven't mentioned is also the recoil system. So on console,
it is lower.
I can't remember the percentage value, but it is a significant... Well, there's a significant portion lower. I want to say about 20%, but that's just a rough number. So again...
But that just brings it in line, though.
I think that's relatively fair. Obviously, aim assist is a whole nother kettle of fish, which I think would be too crazy, but the recoil as it stands, I think that would probably even out some of the differences enough.
I would like to see it. I don't think... like, as long as it's opt-in, opt-out for console, then I think that it's a system that's more than fine. And I guess technically then you could say opt-in, opt-out maybe for PC as well. Anything that's an opt-in, opt-out situation, I think typically shouldn't be met with too much negativity. Obviously, if it's like blanket on, then you're going to get a lot of kickback from a lot of people who are like, oh, what if I don't want this? So if it was implemented, do you think it would be successful?
Yeah, provided they have the provisions in place to safeguard console players that don't want to get stomped by PC players, then yeah, I think it'd be good. I think it'd be a net benefit. And now that you have things like cross progression and stuff, theoretically, if you want to chill out on the couch and play some quick match, you can do that. If you want to then sweat ranked PC or vice versa, you can do that. So
okay, well, something to keep an eye on. Hopefully it becomes a little bit more of a topic in future. Moving on though, and developer focused in terms of console crossplay, but also now in terms of the relationship when it comes to maybe the R6 community or maybe just gaming community in general, tends to be quite negative, which is disappointing, because I think there's a lot of games out there that actually have the developers have a pretty good relationship with their own respective community. I don't know if that's the case in Siege. I feel like the Siege community at times can be quite harsh towards the developers. Yeah,
so the reason I flagged this, it happened a couple weeks ago at the point of this episode going live, I think. NC Jack, who's, I believe, a programmer on the game, recently, I think this year, sort of joined Twitter, and every now and again will make like a personal comment about the game. Obviously his views are not Ubisoft's or whatever. And there was discussion around Maverick and Tubarão, the interaction. And all he did was make a comment basically explaining that you had to hold the torch in position for it to then activate. Like, he didn't make any additional comment about the design of the gadget or any other statement in regards to that. And there was immediately like some negative pushback from that, and people like kind of memeing and taking the piss and stuff. And it's like, if you're a developer and particularly a programmer, it is not in your job scope to be doing this stuff on social media. This is just an added benefit that he's doing because he's so passionate about the game. And if people are going to shit on him for that, it's like, why would you even bother? And I think that's the reason why probably a lot of gaming companies and developers specifically probably just don't even check socials at all, because it's just a cesspool of people that are not providing constructive feedback. So It's a difficult topic because I understand that people want to provide their feedback, but as we always say, there's kind of a right way and a wrong way to go about it. And this is not exclusive to Siege either, right? Like there's all this drama at the moment with like one of the head designers on League copying a lot of flack online. I can't remember what his name is. But you see the same thing in like so many live service games. It's just the community, I think, dehumanizes developers a little bit. And like sometimes there are developers that say silly stuff. There was like that Counter-Strike incident, right? Where the guy's like, you don't need more than 120 hertz or whatever he said. Like, I can't remember what it was. But then, you know, like he corrected himself and, you know, said that was a bit out of line. And I think, yeah, just gaming communities in general just need to be a bit more mature.
The whole subtick system
it was something about that. Yeah.
Was quite a debate, I think, between the developers who obviously have a bit more of an understanding as to the way subtick works. And isn't it kind of funny now that a lot of other bug fixes have been done in Counter-Strike, no one's complaining about subtick at the moment. Like, obviously, when the game came out, there were an abundance of issues, and it was very easy to just be like, subtick sucks, I want 128. And it was like, the developers sitting there like, it's actually, there's all the other things that are maybe making things not the best experience at the moment. I think Dead by Daylight also, I'm always going to
every episode
has been copying flack lately, and the developers have kind of shied away a little bit from engaging as much as they used to.
Yeah.
RuneScape's good because they have a polling system. I don't know if you've seen it, but like a lot of the features that get introduced into the game are polled. So the community there and the developers there are actually pretty good. They have a really good relationship, and one of the more positive instances that I've seen of it. So yeah, look, I'd like, to be fair, the developers, especially for Siege, don't really need to integrate with the community or, you know, have their thoughts, questions and things like that. And
because the thing that really annoys me about people sort of taking the piss now is they forget back in, I think, the period from about 2015 to sort of like 2018-ish, and it got really bad towards like peak Lion meta. The developers, compared to today, made like almost no updates. Like there was hardly any discussion. There was no like anti-cheat updates. There was no like designer note updates to the extent that we have now, and just far less interaction with the community. We didn't have as many like individual developers on personal accounts interacting with the community and stuff like that. And I remember people back then were begging for more communication from the game. And now that we're kind of getting it, they're using that as ammunition to fire back on issues that perhaps these individuals have literally no input on anyway. And it's like, if you want a more interactive development team, you can't just be shitting down their throat every single time.
You also can't use it as a way of trying to get changes into the game that you think are beneficial, because the community's just never going to agree on everything. They don't know what they want. They don't know what's going to be good for the game. So like, look, suggestions is one thing. Obviously, everyone's going to have opinions and suggestions, but it shouldn't be this just like open dialogue with devs where it's like, oh, I want this in the game, do it. And if you don't do it, then fuck you or something like that. So, look, I'd like to see a little bit of communication, maybe a little bit more, but I can see why when you look at the NC Jack situation and probably others as well that go a little bit unnoticed as to why maybe developers in general just kind of want to toe the company line, but also then kind of stay in the shadows a little bit as well. Moving forward, we've got another tweet, this one by a good friend of ours and a fellow colleague, good old Fresh. We've had his tweets. He loves
a good hot take.
He loves a good hot take, but in this one, I don't think it's all that hot, maybe. The question really is, should Tubarão be quarantined at 6 Invitational? I don't know if it's a hot take. I think it's just a take. I don't think it's necessarily like a spicy hot take. Obviously, for those unaware, previously when a new operator would come in, it would be quarantined for a little bit and then eventually kind of like released out into the wild. That got changed a year ago?
Probably 2 now.
Maybe 2. Remember. It's been a little while, basically. So now when an operator is out, it is playable. Even if a Pro League season is happening, it's like, bam, in you go. And I will say this as well, for Tubarão coming out start of December, end of November, whatever it was, in terms of the actual release date. Firstly, it was on the test servers a little bit earlier anyway, back into November. That's a decent amount of time to 6 Invitational, is it not? Like, it's not as if it's come out mid-SI or a week before SI. I think there's been more than enough time that it doesn't need to be quarantined.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is more so from a time perspective. I think it's, as he sort of mentions, it's the fact that he lacks enough counters. And, you know, you can workshop and you can scrim against Tubarão for 3 months, and I don't think it changes fundamentally how he sort of operates and how he's going to interact with other operators and sort of fit into the current meta. I'm not of the mind 100% that he's going to completely ruin the meta for this event, and it's going to come down to who wins one attacking round a half. I don't think it's going to quite get to that point, but it could. And if it does, from a gameplay perspective, this could be a really shit SI. So I understand some caution around him, but I think it's also going to depend on if he gets adjusted. If he gets changed in the mid-season patch, whether it be he's countered by EMPs or the duration's reduced, or something to probably make him less oppressive, I don't think he's going to be as much of an issue. But in his current state now, it could be interesting if some teams have worked out some really fucking crazy strats. Now, I don't think, from what I've heard, it's not like every team is running Tubarão every round, every scrim. So I don't think it's going to be quite that bad, but there's probably going to be instances, right, where it's like a specific site, a specific position, a specific wall. You don't get it open, like it's going to be shit. So
going back to the original tweet, though, for me, it's so because the question really is, does it need to be quarantined for its 6th Invitational because X, Y, and Z? The question is, where do you draw the line in terms of the XYZ reasoning, and then in future, what's your reference point? Should we be then, like, let's say we get to a similar situation next year, Operator gets released, 6th Invitational around the corner, but it's not as oppressive, so we don't quarantine it. Like, so then what's the level and the reasoning behind a particular quarantine? I think you either have, essentially a blanket system. Either you have the old system, where you do quarantine, so Operator comes out but can't be used for the next event. In this case, he wouldn't have been available for 6th Invitational. Or you have the current system where Operator comes out, off you go, and maybe there's a mid-season patch or something that comes out shortly afterwards that can do some tweaking and some balancing. I think, for me personally, in terms of Tubarão, he's on that line, like where if you nerf him, there's a world in which he becomes almost irrelevant, depending on what the nerf is, and to the level of the nerf and the significance of it. So I don't look at him as this like super amazingly broken operator that needs fixing right now. There are some things that can make him quite strong, and we've seen that in terms of the ability to make opening walls, for example, incredibly difficult when paired with, say, like a bandit, and we've seen what teams can kind of do with that, sure. And then if you say to me, okay, what if you make it so then EMP can obviously deny that? Like, then what is he used for? Then what's his new role? Is he going to be banned? Do we see much of him? And as you said already, I think he's probably not exactly like a 100% pick rate, and it's a little bit more site dependent. For me, then, my answer is I don't think he needs to be quarantined. What's your answer?
I don't really want to look at it from the perspective of should he be quarantined. I sort of want to pick up on your point on the quarantine system, because not to be too much of like a hindsight Harry, but I kind of was of this mind from the beginning that they never should have removed quarantine. I don't think it should have been removed. And I understand that, like, from a content and excitement and marketing perspective, it makes sense to have the new ops available in competitive play. That's great. But it does lead to these possible fringe cases where someone's like teetering on the line of being incredibly broken, and how do you measure that, and then how do you actually decide if they should be quarantined? Like, are we going to be looking at some kind of metric to determine that? The only numbers we're going to have are from ranked, and I don't think they're going to be particularly reliable. So do you maybe have a contingency where it can be like gentleman's agreement, like if 75% of the teams or more want it out for an event, maybe it should be out.
What better way?
But then you also introduce like vested interests, right? Because some teams are going to be like, no, we've got some really good chats. We want him to be available. Yeah. And other teams are going to be like, well, we're dog shit with him, so we kind of want him banned.
And ban him.
And so it's not particularly...
That's why the whole ban system's there in the first place.
So it's not particularly, objective in that sense.
I think, though, you're kind of on the money a little bit in terms of the pro play. And if you bring back the quarantine system, then you're not going to be able to see the particular operator in pro play for some time. Therefore, the changes that you would then make in terms of tweaking are delayed.
Yeah,
I think the quicker you get it in and players get their hands on it and they play it and they introduce it, if it's broken and it's like this either 100% ban rate or 100% pick rate, then it makes it easier to then make the changes that are necessary.
Are you going to sacrifice the best event of the year, $3 million tournament?
Say sacrifice. Firstly, teams have got control. If they don't want to deal with Tubarão, you ban it.
That's the argument that people are making. Like, people are going to that extreme and saying, if he is available at this event in this state, it could end up being the worst event ever.
Why?
From a gameplay perspective.
Because you think it would be so defender-sided.
It's going to lead to like 90% defender win rate.
Right. But
I don't agree with that take, but I think it could.
But this is the thing in itself. Even if it's a 90% defensive win rate kind of tournament, even if it becomes to that level, there's still that skill element where you still got to win these fucking rounds. Like, you still can't, screw up. Then it puts more emphasis on obviously winning your defensive rounds and things like that. That's a part of the game, always has been, probably always will be. Now, I do agree that you probably, I think maybe from a stylistic perspective, in the sense that you want it to be this kind of like fun, fast approach, bit of back and forth, attack has a good chance, rather than just being like, okay, well, my team's on attack now and we're not going to win for the next 5 or 6 rounds. But you can't just basically quarantine the operator because you think it will not be as stylistic for the tournament.
How do you feel then about the GA? Like, not every team having to maybe, GA it out, but let's say, like, arbitrarily, if 75% of teams into an event or a stage,
so 6 Invitational, all the teams
out a new operator, should they have the ability to do that?
Have a vote on the newest operator. There's 2 arguments to it. One, if you do that, it's almost like a free blanket ban on a particular operator, right? So you're looking at the pool. The pool of operators is full, and it's like, we're going to pick this one out and no one gets to play it, but that's a free ban. Because you're gonna have some teams that might not want to ban it, and other teams that would insta ban it. And maybe on particular sites or rotations on a particular map, they might say, okay, well, we don't have much that we want to ban here. We can ban out the Tubarão, but other cases we wouldn't ban out the Tubarão on certain maps or whatever, right? So that is strategy. If you've got a certain map in mind where you think we can use it, or we don't want to play against it on just this map, but every other map we don't care, then why would you want to do that? Why would you want to ban it out pre-tournament? You'd be like, yeah, well, it's just one map. We don't care. Or 2 or 3 or whatever the, strategy they've got in mind. But at the same time, if you're getting, I'd want at least maybe 80% majority vote. Because once you get into the realms of 70, it's a little bit iffy. I think if you get an 80% majority of vote, 80% of teams at 6 Invitational all come to an agreement that they don't want this operator to be picked, playable, and that it's perma-blanket banned, quarantined, if you will, no issue with that.
Okay.
I can't argue with an 80% agreement, can I? Oh. So it's not so much, I guess, arguing about that. It's more arguing, should that even be an option?
Do you think that would ever happen, though? Because we have had cases in the past.
It would have to be Blast/Ubisoft led. I don't know if a team revolt would necessarily work.
Do you think they would even lead that? Because they were the ones that took quarantine out in the first place. I don't think Ubisoft are going to be like, hey, we should take out our new operator in the comp game for the first competitive. They would not be fans of it, understandably. Yeah. So
no, they want the new. I think Ubisoft would want the new operator at 6 Invitational, would they not?
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's marketing. Like,
I agree, and that's where we enter the crossroad, right? Where like the views and the opinions of different stakeholders kind of
at the end of the day. And we had our interview with Tiggleton, and we were talking about the entertainment factor in esports, and especially for PUBG, which is a pretty RNG game. At the end of the day, this is still an entertaining thing, but it's also a marketing thing. You have to take all of this into account. As much as it might be annoying that maybe Tubarão's not in the state that you would like him to be, you still got to have this operator at the tournament. If quarantining's not a thing, and it's for marketing purposes, entertainment purposes, like for me, I'm genuinely curious as to what the situation's going to be like for Tubarão at the tournament. Maybe he doesn't even end up getting banned or picked or whatever. Maybe it's completely overblown. It wouldn't be the first time. So, I mean, that's all a part of the spectacle. We're talking about it. That's a win, and it will be a discussion point at SI. That's a win. I think if you just ban everything out and you just put a line through everything, that's boring. Like, I don't know. Have some fun with it. Yeah. But I agree from a competitive standpoint, there will be players and there'll be teams out there that are just like, no, we don't want to deal with this. But hey, maybe figure out a way to deal with it.
Well, I mean, that's the problem, right? The biggest issue stems from the lack of counters. I don't think it's just... Like, the ability itself is very powerful, but it also needs to be contextualized by the fact that there's so few counters. Like, it's Mav and it's Kali, and everything else just gets fucked by it.
Well, I'll tell you this. I ran into Tex last night and he was playing Kali.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking to Nico at the open call that he's a bit of a demon on the Kali. Yeah. We saw some like Kali Osa strats the other day. So
won't be coming out at SI, but hey, look out next year for the Tex Kali. Maybe they've figured it out. Look, we'll leave it there, and I think that it's a good little discussion and debate, and I don't think you'll ever get the... it's not like a one answer kind of thing. because like I think you can make very, very solid arguments both ways, one or the other. I'd love to hear, I guess, maybe people's thoughts on it, whether or not they think it should be quarantined, should not be quarantined. I think from a viewer's perspective, it's like, again, it can go both ways. You want to see the new operator, you want to see what the pros can do with it, but at the same time, I also understand you don't want it to be like 90% defender-sided. Yeah. So I get it from both angles. I get it from both views. The easy option is to do kind of what Fresh has said and quarantine it. I think the harder option would be probably maybe you tweak it mid-season patch before SI and allow it to come in and let teams just figure it out on their own. You agree with that?
I agree with that.
Yeah. Or are you in a particular camp? Like, would you?
Should it be quarantined in its current state at SI? I don't think so. I don't think there needs to be an exception made to the long-standing rule. But we have probably grown comfortable with, shit attackers being added, and that's maybe why. I really just hope it's a case of mid-season patch. He gets some adjustments, perhaps, although that's probably unlikely, and then he's brought in. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion point. If he goes into SI untouched and likely is available to play, I'm intrigued to see what the outcome is. Yeah.
Now, we haven't really got too much more. This is a probably record in terms of the Siege show in terms
Not
of
too much
speed running. Don't want to over waffle. Obviously, we're in a period right now where there's not really much going on. Christmas period, holiday period. I mean, certain teams aren't even probably scrimming at this point, and they'll come back in the new year to prepare for SI if they're playing SI, or I guess Stage 1, which is not exactly that far off of SI. That in itself, interesting that I'm...
Not public. So don't mention dates.
Well, I'm not mentioning dates specifically, but as if you can go back and look at Stage 1 for 2023, what was it, like end of March?
Yeah, pretty close.
It's pretty close. Is that an advantage then for SI teams going into, or is it an advantage for those not at SI then going into Stage 1? They get more time to scrim, new meta, new teams.
I feel like it goes both ways, right? If you go to SI and you play for a couple of weeks and you do shit, you bomb out, you're going to be tired, you're going to be burnt out, you're probably still going to be pissed at the result of that event, which could flow into Stage 1.
You can rebound quickly.
But it could also be a case of, you're a W7M, you go in there, you roll SI, you're on the treble, then Stage 1 is just another walk in the park. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Can't wait for that. Surely they go 4 in a row.
Okay, maybe.
So as I was saying, not a lot happening at the moment. We do have, in terms of local Oceanic tournament, the Rect prestigious tournament that's begun. We've had the qualifiers, the campaign, and that will kick off in the new year, which gives obviously our region something to look forward to in the new year, going into basically a precursor for Stage 1, if you will. I mean, I know SI technically will be after it directly, but it's a really good opportunity for all of the teams to get some of that. It's almost like a stage in itself, because it goes for
6 days. It's almost as long as a stage.
It's like a 3-week thing, isn't it? Like
open calls,
yeah. So it's I mean, if you
2 for the main event.
Yeah, 2 for the main event. So it's a really good precursor. I think that's something that a lot of regions need to have going in as those kind of off-season tournaments. So it's really good that we've got the ability to have those, which our fucking region needs every bit of help that it can take. And so far, I think there's a lot of hype very slowly building for Stage 1 next year, but in terms of right now, not a lot happening. I would imagine the next time we film a Siege show episode, pulling behind the curtains a little bit, that will probably be not too far away from that particular tournament kicking off, and for our sake, hopefully have a little bit more to talk about.
I think it'll probably be the week of, depending on how we line it up. So, a lot to look forward to over the next couple of months, and we eagerly await the Tubarão nerf.
Do you want to do the outro for this one?
You could do it. It's your speciality. It's your trademark.
It is. As always, big thank you to everyone for making it this far in the episode, at least for this particular episode. Probably didn't have to wait too long to get towards the end. It was one of the shorter ones. Do apologize, but hopefully we got some more content coming in the future. As always, if you loved it, if you liked it, let us know in the comments down below. Hit the subscribe button. There's a bell, I believe, that gives notifications. Ring that bell. And of course, as always, Patreon link up above if you want to support the Jake and Guzz show. As always, lots of content coming out, both for the Siege show and the Jake and Guzz show from Jake and Guzz. As always, we'll ramble on a little bit longer, 5-10 minutes or so in our Patreon exclusive. If you want to go and see that behind the scenes, make sure you sign up to Patreon, join the Discord, and as always, have a safe holidays. I don't even know when this episode's coming out. Whether the holidays...
Second week of Jan, I think.
Probably.
No, actually, no, it's coming out tomorrow, probably. I don't even know.
I don't even know at this point.
Tomorrow.
Just as always.
Late December.
Stay safe out there. Much love. We'll see you in the next episode.